Even though it was largely illegal for me to work last year, I'm exhausted. I desperately need a holiday. Did we learn nothing from the pandemic about work and burnout? Nah, I probably just need to work harder to figure this one out.
Excuse me, little lady. Did you say you were looking for a holiday?
Yeah, but you know how it is. You got to accrue leave. You got to find the right time to do it.
Details? Boring. Seashells. Now that's what I'm talking about.
Jesus! Where did you come from?
I'm here to offer you an all-expenses-paid trip to a private island.
Well, that seems pretty suspicious.
It isn't.
Yes, it is.
It's not.
Well, where's this island?
Never mind. The only thing you need to worry about is sunscreen. Definitely don't be concerned about your organs.
What did you say about my organs?
Nothing about them. Your liver will stay right where it is. Look at all these articles written about my great island.
Jesus. Island getaway great. Why does this headline have a bunch of censor bars on it? Island getaway makes Great Depression look like island getaway. And this one is just a handwritten article that says island getaway definitely real. Free human organs on arrival, I mean nothing. And these are squiggly lines. There's not even an article written
No need
here.
to look into this any deeper. Just come with me.
No!
Yes?
No!
Yes.
Leave or I will make you leave.
Okay.
Hi there, I'm Beck Petratus, the person who always jumps in to say that actually Blue Heaven is just raspberry flavouring before being asked to stop shouting, you're bothering the other patrons at the pancake parlour. And this week's question comes to us from the internet, which brought us such wonders as animals that are bigger or smaller than you expect. And that one TikTok sound I can't get out of my head, you know the one, it goes, ba-do-ba-ba-da-boo-boo-da-bop. Nope, that's not right. Whatever. Anyway, just a quick question about the fabric of reality. How do I tell what's a true news story and what's completely made up? Just trying to assess whether my perception of what's real or not is valid. Lol. Completely fake news stories, they do happen. But the worrying trend of calling news that doesn't match your biases fake is happening as well. And by the by, what is reality? Not sure I'm the best person to help, but let's get into it. Fake news is defined by the Collins Dictionary as false, often sensational information disseminated under the guise of news reporting. The phrase itself has been around for over 100 years and has had a real resurgence recently where it started to take on a different meaning. This former US president, who I don't need to name because he's always sitting in the back of our minds, lying in wait like a sleep paralysis demon with a failed brand of steaks, he started using fake news and suddenly the rather simple phrase also meant spin, conspiracy theories, mistakes and reporting that people just don't like. It's this common usage that has led researcher Dr. Claire Wardle to ditch the phrase completely, arguing that it has become weaponised and woefully inadequate for tackling how misleading information spreads. Dr. Wardle stresses how important it is to think about the motivations behind both people creating misinformation and the reason why viewers might choose to spread it. They break down this information pollution into 3 separate categories. Misinformation, where misleading content is spread without harmful intent. Malinformation, where true but damaging content is shared with malicious intent. And disinformation, which is false information shared only for nasty-pasty purposes. A key bit of Dr. Wardle's advice for spotting any misleading story is to consider that if you find yourself incredibly angry at a piece of content or feeling smug because your viewpoint has been reaffirmed, take another look. Skepticism is key to making sure you're not manipulated into spreading the information yourself. And that's important advice, given that a recent study found that most of the Australian adults surveyed had a low level of confidence in media literacy, ranging from decision making on sharing information online, fact checking, and making sure a website can be trusted. And also they weren't confident they could choose an appropriate video game for their 8-year-old, a medium which has a rating system based on ages, so don't even get me started on that. All worrying stuff. And don't let your kids play any video games, just to be safe. They could end up being boring nerds like me. So, let's try and give you some practical tools for spotting misleading news. These ones gathered by Harvard University writer Christina Nagler are a really good overview. Pay attention to the URL of the story you're reading and make sure it's a trusted organisation. TheGuardian.com, real website. TheGuardian.com, not malicious, but they are more interested in spreading things other than verifiable information. How do you know if a website can be trusted? Check the About Us section of whatever website you're on and do a little bit of digging. If they're not open about themselves, it's probably best to be skeptical. Pay attention to the date of the piece and the quality. Work out when this story is from. Sometimes old bits of news resurface out of context. Then look at the writing style and the aesthetics of the website. If something is using a lot of caps lock, hyperbolic language, or graphics that look strange for a news outlet, chances are it's because it isn't a news outlet at all. Check out who they've spoken to for the story. Are they actually experts in the fields they say they're in? And check if the studies they're talking about are legitimate. And if you're not sure, look up other fact-checking websites to see if they've looked into it. Here's some here. You can just pick any of these. Or even just look to see if it's been posted anywhere else that passes muster. And if you've spotted a bit of misleading news, hang tight before you brag about it. You can spread that misinformation even by calling it out. Professor of Psychology Tom Buchanan advises not interacting with misinformation at all, since any engagement will lead to more people seeing it. And that's a pretty reliable way of testing whether something is real or being put out by people with ulterior motives. What the hell are you doing?
Certainly wasn't taking your wallet on the holiday of a lifetime.
Thought you were offering a free holiday.
We've just added a new VIP package. The I stands for you.
You are making less and less sense. But here's a good opportunity to check the veracity of this guy's claims. Number one, all these articles that you threw in my face earlier are from a website called our real website, shutup.com, and the about section is just this picture of the guy's face.
All seems pretty cool so far.
And the articles are all written in all caps.
Well, it makes it look like you're screaming.
And the people you've got quotes in here for are Al Perone, Sarah Rapon, and someone just called Aeroplanes. They all appear to be, and I'm sorry for being really good at Scrabble, but they're anagrams of a real person.
Yeah, that was foolish on my part.
And I googled the island.
Oh boy.
You're trying to get me to go to some marshland you own.
Hey, fact check. It's actually more of a bog. And you should come join us. Jump in. The bog is warm.
I feel like a cold bog would be preferable.
Can't even tempt you with the fact bogs are a natural carbon sink?
Just because something is true, it doesn't mean I'm interested.
Well, I'll get you in that bog if it's the last thing I do. Till then, I'll shell you later.
Not again. Okay, enough of that guy. Let's talk to a real expert. Hello, Marnie Vinyl, freelance writer and journalist. How are you going?
Yeah, I'm all right. Thanks. How are you?
I'm all right. So, when it comes to misleading news, what do you think are the top ways of spotting if something might be misleading?
So the first is to see whether it's from a reputable publication. So if you're seeing news from somewhere like the ABC or the Guardian, it's probably not fake news. But if you're seeing something from like theguardian.melbourne.port.au, then there's a good chance it's probably fake news. A good way to spot it as well is like if you feel an emotion when you first see it, because that kind of like shortcuts the logic of your brain. So if something makes you laugh or it just seems absurd and silly and you want to share it straight away, there's a good chance that it's probably fake. Another one is you want to see if there's a byline on the piece. So if it's by an author, you can then see if they've written other articles and sort of, get some common sense and judge it. But if there isn't an author on it, there's also a good chance that it could be by a bot or it's fake.
So when you encounter someone who is spreading misinformation, even if it might be by accident, what do you think is the best way of correcting that? Because that's a really tough thing to have that conversation.
It's incredibly tough, especially also because research has shown that if you confront someone about something fake, they're more likely to double down.
Ooh.
So if someone say, an uncle shares like climate change isn't real, and then you tell them the reasons it is, they suddenly get on the back foot and defensive, and they're more likely to believe that it isn't real based on that defensive stance. So it's a really tough one that I think a lot of people are still kind of just trying to figure out.
I mean, the other question is, when it comes to misinformation that is online, a lot of social media sites nowadays are putting up those little pop-up messages that say this may be misleading and giving information. Do you think that's the best way to do it, or should those things just be taken down?
Yeah. I mean, ideally it would be great if big tech could just kind of solve this issue for us. A lot of, Facebook's like, well, this is not what we're set up for, so it's not our job. When it's, well, it is your job now. You've kind of got to get on it. So yeah, ideally it would be good if they could just get the act into gear, so it's not, the onus and responsibility isn't placed on citizens, but when's that ever happened? So
yeah. What dangers do you think misinformation poses in people's everyday life when they do pick up something and then they go out?
Yeah. So in 1930, 98, a pseudoscience publication published that vaccines lead to autism. And then that was picked up and it was spread, unfortunately. And now we've got a whole anti-vax movement, and kids aren't being vaccinated, and diseases that were once eradicated in countries are coming back. So, you know, these like tiny publications that are spreading misinformation, you can be like, well, who really cares? But they do have really, really bad real world consequences.
What critical thinking techniques would you love to see people use when they're consuming information?
I mean, common sense is the first one, and it can be really frustrating when like misinformation is spread and you're like, how is anybody believing this? But I guess you've got to go past misinformation and you've got to kind of look at whether things have an agenda. So is someone's reputation being taken down? Is there a political agenda behind it? Or is it just like really clickbaity and meant to get advertising revenue? Because those are the three reasons behind fake news. And I think a lot of people forget the advertising one, where it's just like people are making stories up to get clicks, to get money. So the more salacious, the better. So if you just look at something and go, that's probably not real, it's probably not real.
Well, thank you very much for speaking to me.
Thanks for having me. This is lovely.
And that's the end of the show. And, how was the bog?
Bog's fine. I just wanted to say, I'm sorry about before, but I've got a real offer for you, okay? Just come in the bog. You know, you won't have to worry about media literacy anymore. You've said it yourself a bunch of times through the series. It's all dependent on media reform and education and people making the effort to stay informed. Like, that just sounds so complex. You know what's not complex? The bog. No need to think in the warm embrace of decaying mosses and moderately acidic groundwater.
Look, number one, thank you for being truthful with me.
No problem.
But I think I'm going to stay out of the bog for now.
Understandable. Plus, media literacy is a noble cause.
And putting people in a bog is, it's not noble, but it's certainly something that you're trying to do.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure to attempt to steal your organs and hide your corpse in the depth. Anyway, better get back to the old bog and chain. You know how it is.
Not at all.
Well, good to bog you.
Okay. Oh no! In summary, don't trust everything you read, especially if it's something you really wanted to read. Do a little bit of detective work to ensure you're not accidentally spreading misinformation. And as always, don't just take my word for all this. I like standing in the kitchen eating cheese slices out of the packet. Don't believe what you've read without reading it twice, and even then, read it again. Now, it's time for that vacation that bog boy was falsely offering. Not gonna lie, this would actually be better in a bog.